Yo, what's up everybody? Before we get into the contents of this video, I just want to ask all of you if you could like, comment, subscribe, all that beautiful business. Tell your friends, tell your grandparents, tell your aunties, tell your uncles, tell your mailman about me. It only takes 5 seconds and it would make a massive difference in how this channel grows. But yeah, on to the video. Appreciate y'all. So the Dallas Mavericks are moving on to the NBA Finals to face the Boston Celtics. And before I even want to get into matchups, you know, who's going to need to make big shots, blah, 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 all that nonsense, I just want to talk about Luka Doncic for a second. Because the postseason that this man is having is honestly one of the best of the last, 20 years. This man is leading the entire playoffs in points, rebounds, assists, steals, 3 points made, and free throws made. And none of these are actually even close. He's got 100 more points than the next person. He's got 8 more steals, 12 more three-pointers, almost 50 more free throws. It's insane. It's insane. And he did this against the Minnesota Timberwolves, who were the best defense in the regular season, and then amped that up even more in the postseason, making what we looked at as offensive juggernauts in the Phoenix Suns and the Denver Nuggets, and just made them look mediocre at times. And to also do that against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who were 4th in defensive rating in the regular season. This is just an absolutely insane run that he's having. And not only doing it against 2 elite defenses, but doing this against 3 50-plus win teams. The first person to do it since Kobe Bryant in 2010. And he was the road team in every single series. And I understand people are going to look at his shooting splits and be like, he wasn't that efficient while doing this. But he has been dealing with 5 or 6 different injuries throughout this entire postseason. And when he faced the Timberwolves, again, far and away the best defense in the NBA, he put up 32 points a game on 47% shooting and 43% from 3. And then now you're giving him a week off to get even healthier against the Boston Celtics? And also the Celtics themselves have had a phenomenal postseason run. Really, really good. And I don't care what anybody says about injuries. Because, let's all be honest to ourselves. The Celtics were going to beat every team in the East anyways. Regardless of whatever you want to say about the injury bug in the East, the Celtics are still arguably the most dominant team in the NBA. And I understand people want to be weird and be all the regular season doesn't matter. But it does. It literally does. And the Boston Celtics were by far the most dominant team in the regular season. And again, I understand what their competition was like in the Eastern Conference playoffs. But at the same time, they were 23-7 against the West this past season. And that's with beating the Dallas Mavericks twice. They beat Phoenix. They beat Minnesota. They've beaten all of the really good teams in the West, I think, aside from Denver. So this isn't just a case of an okay team benefiting from a bunch of injuries from teams who are better. This is the best team in a conference being the best team in the conference, regardless of whatever you want to say about injuries. But yeah, on to the actual finals itself. In my opinion, this is probably the best finals outcome that we could have got. Because I think we all know that these are 2 fantastic basketball teams who have very interesting matchups against each other. And all these games are going to be very close, very competitive. There's going to be a lot of high-scoring stretches. There's going to be a lot of raw defensive stretches. But also, this finals just has so many juicy narrative storylines that all of the casuals in the media just love to eat up. You got Luka Doncic coming into his first finals series. The idea of Al Horford possibly getting his first ring. You have Kristaps going up against Dallas. You have Kyrie coming back to Boston. You have the battle of who could be the best player in the NBA right now between Luka and Jason Tatum. And then also, you just have all the juicy stuff that could develop as the series goes along. I know everybody's really looking forward to seeing Kyrie in TD Garden in the finals. But I'm ready to see Luka in that environment in the finals. Because we've seen all throughout this playoffs and playoffs before where fan chatter just drives Luka to new heights, where something as small and insignificant as a fan at courtside saying cry more, and now he's got 20 points in the first quarter. You know, there was a moment in Oklahoma where one of the fans early on in the series was talking a lot of trash at Luka, and then later on, when Luka wins the series, he goes to find that fan. He finds that fan and does his little lean over and smiling act. Like, I am so ready to see Luka in this toxic ass city. So let's talk about how these two teams match up. This is very interesting to me because these two teams are so different from each other in terms of how they operate on offense and how they operate on defense. You have the Dallas Mavericks, who are very heliocentric, whether it is Luka or Kyrie handling the ball, and they run a lot, and I mean a lot, of pick and rolls. Meanwhile, you have the Boston Celtics, who are very, 5 out, heavy in isolation. And when the Boston Celtics do run their pick and rolls, it's for very different reasons than why Dallas would run them. When Dallas runs them, they're doing that not to just mismatch hunt whenever they can, but it's how they generate the whole offense. Meanwhile, with the Boston Celtics, when they're running pick and rolls, it's mainly to mismatch hunt. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Boston is very switch heavy, and I mean very switch heavy. And rightfully so, because in their starting lineup, they have 4 really, really, really good perimeter defenders. 2 of them are probably elite. And then you have Al Horford, or hopefully Kristaps Porzingis, who aren't great in space, but they're good enough that you don't have to sell out and suddenly get caught in rotation every single time Al Horford or Kristaps Porzingis gets switched onto a perimeter player. Meanwhile, with Dallas, they hate switching. They don't like it. They would rather play drop coverage. They would play up to touch. And one thing that I've noticed with Dallas is that they are very, very willing to put multiple bodies on the other team's star player and live with the role player just cooking. That's why you saw Jaden McDaniels score 19 points and a half. That's why you saw Naz Reid hit like 7 threes in a game. Because Dallas is willing to live with stuff like that happening as long as the number 1 or the number 2 guys aren't killing them. And then if you go back to the OKC Thunder series, where they were also a very, 5-out team, our guy's going to cook, everyone just sit there and we're going to get our shots up. We're going to get a lot of threes up. Because Dallas is so long and athletic, even if they are getting caught in rotation, they can recover very well to at least somewhat disrupt the shooting. And that's a big reason why OKC lost that series, because they just couldn't hit those 3-pointers. That's why I think 2 of the biggest X factors for Boston in this series is Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis. Because you're going to have a lot of possessions where Dallas is just sagging off of them because they're going to be willing to just let them get their open shots if it means that Tatum or Jaylen Brown aren't getting, their favored looks, their easy looks. So everybody's worried about, what's it going to be like when Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown aren't going to have to worry about Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively at the rim. Well, I think they are still going to have to worry about them, because Dallas is more than willing to let these role players have their open shots. Because in Dallas's mind, those guys aren't going to beat them. And I think another X factor for Boston's offense against Dallas is, will they be able to take advantage of Luka guarding somebody or Kyrie guarding somebody? Because that's another thing that people are really talking about a lot when it comes to this series, is that, hey, Drew Holiday is a good perimeter player. Derek White is a good perimeter player. And those 2 guys are more than likely who Luka and Kyrie are going to be guarding. So will Derek White and Drew Holiday be able to consistently score on Luka and Kyrie? considering Luka and Kyrie have actually been plus defenders on and off the ball throughout the playoffs. You know, if they can make something happen against those two players and consistently score, or at the very least just get them into foul trouble, then Dallas is going to be in real danger of losing this series very quickly. But if Luka and Kyrie are able to hold up against them two, then they're just not going to be as important to this series as I think a lot of people are expecting them to be. And my last thing, talking about Dallas's defense against Boston, as we just saw in the last series with Anthony Edwards, Dallas is going to force these guys who aren't necessarily the point guards of the team to make a lot of decisions. They're going to force you to make good decisions consistently with the basketball. So if Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I understand Jason Tatum specifically is a really good playmaker for his position, but there's a difference between being a good playmaker for your spot and being a legitimate point guard level playmaker. If Jason Tatum is able to be that, I think Boston's chances of winning this series increases significantly. If he can't, then they're going to run into a lot of issues. So yeah, when it comes to what Boston can do against Dallas's defense, role players, hit your shots whenever you get them. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown make good decisions with the basketball. Try your best to make Luka and Kyrie work, and there's a really good chance that you win this series. Now, when it comes to Dallas attacking Boston's defense, listen, I understand that Jrue Holiday and Derek White are both phenomenal perimeter defenders. Jason Tatum as well, and Jaylen Brown. But they're not going to be able to guard Luka consistently. I don't think anybody can. You know, Jrue Holiday is really skilled, he's really smart, he's really crafty, and he's really strong. But he's also really undersized. Derek White, he's a lot of those same things, but he's also not as strong, and he's also really undersized. I think Jaylen Brown is also even undersized. Jason Tatum is the only guy that can really match Luka physically, but I just don't think he's skilled enough as a defender to really disrupt some of the things that Luka likes to do. Like when you have these moments in the basketball game, especially going down the stretch in the clutch, when you pretty much have to have Jason Tatum on Luka, can JT consistently navigate these screens well enough to not get caught on Luka's backside? Can he stop his own breaks fast enough to where Luka and his insane deceleration doesn't get you caught in a very bad position? And why I specifically bring up the clutch time is because they also want Jason Tatum to do a lot on offense. He's probably only going to guard Luka for like 3 minutes in the entire game, and that's more than likely going to be the last 3 minutes. So for the rest of the 45 minutes of the basketball game, when it's Jrue Holiday or Derek White, or when, because you like to switch a lot, when it's Kristaps or Al Horford, you know, when you got the Peyton Pritchard minutes in there, when you got the Sam Hauser minutes in there, what are you going to do to stop Luka from absolutely killing these people on offense? And the truth is, me personally, I don't know what that is. I don't know what the solution to Luka is. Because, again, I think Jason Tatum is good enough to not really slow down Luka, but he's not going to be as much of a mismatch as anybody else on that team. But again, you can't have Jason Tatum guard him for every minute of the game because he has to do so much on the offensive end. So how are you going to slow down a guy who is just an outright mismatch for literally every single other player on the team? And not only that, but against a guy who is shown to be able to just slice up every single defensive coverage you can imagine. Because the Timberwolves tried everything. And I mean literally everything. When they played drop coverage, Luka had like a 1.14 points per possession. When they played up the touch, it was the same thing. When they switched, it was the same thing. When they blitzed, they didn't force any turnovers. None. And that's not with the main defenders in that pick and roll action being Derek White and Al Horford. That's with Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert. If those two guys can't stop that Luka pick and roll, I don't know what you can do about it. And with these Luka pick and rolls, it's not just about Luka and his own scoring. It's about what he provides as opportunities for everybody else on the team. Because when you're playing up the touch with him, or you're switching, or you're blitzing, it's not just Luka that's a threat. It's Derek Lively rolling towards the rim. It's PJ Washington in the corner. And honestly, it's also Derek Jones Jr. in the other corner, because I think he's shooting like 55% from three, specifically in the right corner. It's Kyrie Irving who's moving around off ball, either to move defenders out of Luka's way or to put himself in a position to catch the ball while everyone else is caught in rotation and to do his own thing against the Boston Celtics. And then speaking of Kyrie Irving, I think Derek White and Drew Holiday and Jaylen Brown are really good defensive options for Kyrie Irving. Like, just if Kyrie is trying to score in pure isolation, I think those three guys are really good options for him. I'm not worried about the Boston Celtics in that regard. But what I am worried about is when they run pick and rolls with Kyrie too. Because you run into a lot of the same problems. If you blitz him, there's Luka over there right on the other wing for him to just throw it to, and now Luka is playing legitimate 4-on-3 basketball. And that's just a nightmare to think about. If you play up the touch or you play drop, Kyrie is really comfortable taking these pull-up threes, these pull-up mid-rangers off of that action. And he's also shown to be really, really good at throwing lobs to Gafford and Lively. So albeit you're dealing with these problems to a much lesser degree than you deal with them with Luka, because Luka is just arguably the greatest pick and roll operator we have ever seen in the sport, Kyrie is no slouch in that regard. Kyrie is going to get the looks that he wants. Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford are going to get the looks they want. Luka's going to get all the looks he wants. PJ Washington and Derek Jones Jr., maybe Tim Hardaway, Josh Green, all these guys are going to get the looks that they want. And so really, what this final series comes down to me, and I know this is very corny and cliche, but I really truly do believe this. I don't think either team can effectively guard one another on a possession-by-possession basis. What I think is that this series is just going to have to come down to whoever makes their shots. Because of the drop coverages from the Mavs and them selling out to the star players, etc., etc., Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, they're all going to get the looks that they want eventually. It's just a matter of whether or not they make their shots. And the exact same thing goes to almost everybody on the Dallas Mavericks. And when these games come down to the wire, and when it's about who can make your shots, especially when they matter, I trust Luka, Kyrie, and the Mavs more than I do the Celtics. So I'm going with Mavs in 6. I think they're going to split the games in Boston. They're going to split the games in Dallas. And then game 5s and 6, the Mavs are just going to win both of those. And this will be over in 6. Luka Finals MVP. Dallas gets their first ring since 2011. And everybody except for Boston is happy. But yeah, man, that's it for this video. Really, really, really looking forward to this series. I think this is going to be an amazing finals. Probably one of the best that we've had since probably in the last like 10, 11 years, to be honest with you. But yeah, hope y'all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that. And I will see y'all later. Peace.